So one of the very common things that I see in my practice when I'm talking to women is that they're so tired and frustrated with hair loss. This is something that I actually see happen quite often with hypothyroidism, or just when the hormones are imbalanced as well. But I want to go over with you why this is connected to hypothyroidism, why this happens, and things that you should look for. So one of the biggest things that I see when women are really struggling, where they have hair loss or hair thinning for that matter, is they have a really big imbalance between their thyroid hormones, meaning that they might have enough T4, but they don't have enough active T3. So remember, you only make 20% T3. You don't make very much of it, and you have to convert a very large percentage over. And if you don't have enough active thyroid hormone, that is your metabolism that keeps things going in throughout the body. You can definitely struggle with some hair loss issues, and I see this all the time. Sometimes TSH will actually look okay, by the way, so it doesn't necessarily, you may not even have a hypothyroidism diagnosis, because they usually diagnose off of TSH. So just keep that in mind, that maybe you don't have that thyroid diagnosis, but you're still having all this hair loss. I would still get a full panel checked. You want to make sure you're checking all your thyroid markers, and definitely make sure that they're checking your free T3 levels, because this is a very important marker for hair stuff. Also, something else that I see really commonly is if you just had a baby recently, even in the last year, everything is shifting in your body after having a baby. The sex hormones don't really know what to do. You start having a ton of hair falling out, and some of that connection is because of the thyroid. Remember, everything kind of gets shunted and takes a hit, and the body isn't quite sure what to do during pregnancy. And the thyroid and the sex hormones are so closely connected, and they will take a very, very big hit. And so always keep that in mind, is that if you've had a baby, or maybe you had a massive shift in hormones lately, maybe you went off birth control, or maybe you went on birth control, that can actually contribute to it, because it's so connected to the thyroid, and it will throw off what your T3 and T4 levels are doing. Another connection that I see is one of the things that is very commonly when women have hypothyroidism, and even Hashimoto's for that matter, they end up very low in iron. This is something that I see quite often with many women in my practice, and I actually struggle with this myself. And iron, we call it iron anemia. That can cause a lot of hair loss. It can cause things even like heavy periods, you're bruised really easy, you have really, really cold hands and feet. Those are all kind of things that can be connected to hypothyroidism, because iron is such a close connection to that. And I see a lot of women really get deficient in iron with hypothyroidism. Another thing to also consider is your stress levels. I cannot emphasize this enough. I know you probably get tired of hearing that stress is contributed to so many different things, but in all reality, it really is. It can be connected to a lot of different things. Stress is a really, really big one. And usually when we are considering stress, it typically is more of a temporary thing. It's not something that's usually, I don't see it where it's a long-term thing where the hair just keeps continuing to fall out. Once you start addressing the stress, that can help. But I mean, anything that's happening, whether it's internal stressor on the body or an external stress, like you going through a divorce or had a death of a loved one or an illness or something like that, that's all stress on the body, and that can definitely contribute to hair loss. Also keep in mind, I mentioned sex hormones a little bit with having just had a baby, but think about your other sex hormones like testosterone and DHEA. So testosterone and DHEA are not something that I think get tested very often with women when they are struggling with hair loss, and I think it should be tested. Now, you can test it on blood. Sometimes it's not enough to see that. I personally like to use the Dutch test, which is a dried urine test, because it shows the metabolizing of DHEA and testosterone. It shows how they're broken down, and the pathways of how they're broken down actually determines which pathway you're going to, whether you're going to more of the feminine side of the pathway or the masculine side. And when we're really pushing that androgenic side, which is the masculine side of the hormone, you're going to have a ton of hair loss, and you're going to have even like facial hair, acne, things like that. You'll see a lot of those types of things. I see this all the time with hypothyroidism. It's very common for those sex hormone pathways to get off. And I always use the analogy of like a triangle. You have your sex hormones on one corner, adrenals on one corner, and the thyroid on another corner. And again, I mentioned stress. So we have stress, we have sex hormones are off, and then we have the thyroid on the other corner. They all feed off of each other, and that's why you can have hair loss with just having something off with your sex hormones or just being under stress. You can have hair loss because it's all, again, comes back to the thyroid. It's your master regulator. So it just keeps getting connected. You can see my pattern here where all these things are connected. Something else that I do want to mention, nutrient deficiencies can be a really big connection to hair loss. And again, it's usually connected to some thyroid stuff. Things like B vitamins, even like B complex, B6 especially has been connected to it, zinc, copper, iron I mentioned a little bit ago too. But those are all really big ones that I will see connected to hair loss. I test for all those. I do like to look at all those on hair tissue mineral analysis. I personally prefer to look at minerals and things like that on hair because I think it's a little bit more accurate. It gives us a 3-month average. Copper, we can definitely get a good read on blood. Sometimes we need to do that on urine. Iron, I like to see on blood and hair. I will compare the two. But B vitamins as well, I do like to see that on blood, and I will compare it to hair as well. So I think the combination of that can give us a really good read of what's going on with the connection of is this connected to the hair loss. And again, typically I will see there's something going on with the thyroid. Maybe the thyroid hormones aren't going inside the cells. Maybe you have them. Maybe your panel looks normal, but it doesn't mean you're using your thyroid hormone. And typically that will contribute to some hair loss because we have those nutrient deficiencies. So that's why I like to do a lot of testing to get a really, really broad picture and uncover all the layers that are connected to that. So I hope this video helps you. I know it's a little bit overwhelming. It's a lot of information, and especially when you're like, that's a lot of things connected to hair loss. But that's why I like to do all the testing so that you don't have to guess anymore. We look at, looking at the Dutch test, looking at your hair test, things like that will give us a very good idea as to these are the, X, Y, Z. Usually it's more than one thing, but these are the things that are connected to why you have your hair loss. So again, let me know if you have questions with this, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.